All right, welcome back to Inside Gateway. This is post-auction, so it's a little crazy, but the tents are going down finally today, so we're thankful for that. But life is back to normal, and we are blessed to have Toby last minute here because I didn't plan ahead after the auction, believe it or not. So anyway, thank you for being here, Toby.
Absolutely.
What is your title or role here at Gateway?
So my title is Residential Case Manager. So that means that it's a new position actually, so a lot of the case management, the counselors were doing all of that, and it was kind of a lot. They weren't having time to plan sessions and do a lot of the therapy that they are here to do.
Okay.
And so the purpose was to take some of that paperwork, some of that case management stuff, and put it on my plate so they had more time for that.
Sure. Well, that's great because as a house parent, I mean, it's like we didn't have to deal with the paperwork, so we could kind of do more. It's not more important work, but it's just more frontline work.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
no, that's awesome that they. Do you know like kind of the history of what kind of led to opening that position or the need?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah. Not for sure.
They got you a job.
They
So
got
that's all
me a
that
job.
matters.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. So, I personally don't know anybody other than you, Carla, and some of your siblings that have come from a larger family. So, speaking to that a little bit, 11 siblings, right? Or one of 12, however you want to say it. So, not quite a baker's dozen, but we're right there.
Yeah, so I'm the 8th of 12. So I feel like, I like to say this, I kind of have a unique spot. Like I have a relationship with the older siblings. My oldest brother is in his 30s. My youngest brother is like 13, I think.
Okay.
So being in the middle, I kind of have the ability to have a relationship with both. I was in, like we lived in the same house. I've lived in the same house with all of them. So, and especially as we get older, like I find that I'm having more relationship with my older siblings, and then being able to grow a relationship with my younger siblings as well. So yeah, being in the middle, it's a kind of a unique spot.
I've asked this question before. It's actually twofold. I love this when you have that big of a family. So if you were stranded on a desert island, which sibling would you take with you?
This might cause family.
It's fine.
One sibling.
One sibling, yeah.
Oh man. I'm gonna have to. This is gonna cause a conflict here on campus. I would have to say probably my brother Kirk. I feel like we get along really well.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the same interests. Probably Kirk. I would choose any of you, but if I had to choose one, it would have to be Kirk.
Okay. So go golfing around the island.
Exactly, yeah. Of course there'd be a golf course there.
Okay. All right, so second, if you had to go shopping, who would you take?
Probably my sister Leanne.
Okay.
I think she's got pretty good taste and she enjoys shopping.
Very good. All right, so growing up, I mean, was it being in the middle there, 8 or upper middle? How, what was Christmas like? I mean, it's just like, this seems crazy because we have 4 boys and they're fighting over stuff. I just can't imagine 12, so.
Yeah, so Christmas, every year we do, like everybody brings like an appetizer or something for the meal. And then, we all gather in one room, crowd in as much as we can. And then we go one by one, like doing presents with the like family members and then like the nieces and nephews and stuff. It is kind of difficult to keep everybody back while one person, like usually they'll go in the middle or whatever and open a present. So you kind of have to keep a little boundary around them. Doesn't always work, but there's a little bit of chaos going on.
Oh, that's great. Good chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Jesse and Carla, obviously were the first of the siblings to work here. Was that your first exposure to Gateway Woods, or had you heard of Gateway before that?
Yeah, so I'd heard of before. I think I had come out with one of my friends for the auction. I don't know, I was probably in grade school or something.
Okay.
I had come out for that. I don't really remember much about that experience, but I remember I got a Gateway shirt. Nice. And that was just the coolest thing. But then when Jesse and Carla moved out, that's kind of when I started like getting involved here and That summer I volunteered, and I think every summer after that, up until now, I've come out and volunteered. Last summer I did the internship in home-based. And so that's kind of where my experience with Gateway came from.
Nice. Real quick, if you have questions, please chime in. Do we have anything yet, Emily? All right.
No.
So volunteering. So what kept bringing you back after that first experience?
I would say the number one thing was just family, being able to come out for a summer and spend some time with Jesse and Carla, and Ren and Niall, after they adopted Niall. Just not being able to see them as much. But also I think just the first time I came out, I just feel like there was a sense of community on campus that was interesting. Like all the house parents were really close together, it seemed like, worked really well together and had a really good relationship with the residents here. And being like having Jesse and Carla be in Cypress House, like I was able to stay with them and kind of got to see a different perspective. Just being in the house with them, watching them engage, watching the resident engage with Ren and Niall and all of that. And it was just cool to see. And I have always had like a passion for people. Obviously I went into social work, and so that kind of underlying personality was just like intriguing for me. And then working with the volunteers, doing work on campus and being able to engage there, see things happen on campus was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, very good. So that was 2 summers volunteering and then the home base, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So of all those experiences, what has helped you most in your current role?
I would probably say the internship, just because like it was home based, so it wasn't like working with the residents on campus, but it was like engaging with clients, getting like resources and stuff together, doing assessments and stuff with them, which assessments is a big part of my position here. And so being able to engage and do those things with clients and have some of that like personal interaction was a good preparation for coming here and doing like engagement with the residents and stuff here.
Very good. So what has, do you have like a fun memory or kind of like an experience that kind of kept you coming back? I mean, it doesn't have to even be in your current role, but just with your exposure at Gateway Woods.
Like, you mean like just volunteering or anything?
Anything, yeah, any exposure to Gateway.
Okay. Well, I've always enjoyed the auction. Like that's something that like every year like gets me excited, having not only coming out to see like residents and house parents and all of that, but then in family, but like all the like friends that come from everywhere, that it can kind of be like a reunion place almost. So that's one thing, just the auction in general, and then just seeing like all the generosity and like over the past few years how the numbers have just kept climbing, like the donation numbers and stuff. So that's one thing, but then I'd also say like again, just the community on campus and how everybody's connected together and working together for the same mission, and everybody has just a passion for the gospel. I think that's like the community and the gospel are two things that are so evident here, and definitely a draw.
Very good. So if you were to encourage somebody, whether it's volunteering or the open house parent positions that we have, if they're praying about it or if it's not even on their radar, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I think definitely like be open to God's leading. It's a difficult job. Like obviously you're working with kids from harder places, and it takes a lot of patience and like you have to give a lot of yourself. But it's rewarding work. God definitely blesses it and works through you to get involved in these kids' lives and try to speak into them and teach them things that maybe they weren't able to have growing up because of their different family situations or whatever it might be. But yeah, just be open to God's leading and trust that He, like whether you feel that this is something that you're like skilled at or not, God is gonna prepare you for that journey.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I guess I would add on to that. It's like, it's like just come out for a visit. Just even like you did not come out first to volunteer or even do an internship.
Yeah.
It was just spending time with people that you knew, and then you got comfortable and you just saw opportunity to be able to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, very cool. So your parents, I mean, they're now reps, so it just seems like the whole family's catching fire here of Gateway.
Yeah.
Fever or whatever you want to call it. So how has it been like around maybe the family gatherings? Is Gateway kind of a big consuming factor, or is it just kind of like, it's just part of our culture now back in the Steidinger household?
Yeah. I would say it gets brought up occasionally. I think it gets brought up more between like myself and the siblings who are here, especially as I was like going through school and thinking about graduating and where I was going to go find a job and stuff. They would bring it up to me more often. Jess and Carla are great recruiters, so that was a big one. But yeah, in terms of like just randomly coming up in family conversation, I don't feel like it's like it pops up all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just kind of part of who we are.
Very good. So, what has one thing that God has taught you, just specifically maybe in this role, or in volunteering, whatever?
Yeah. I would say like you can know as much, like have all the knowledge in the world, but experience is huge. Like going through school and social work, you pick up a lot of like knowledge that's going to help you in like in these types of situations with kids who are in hard places. But until you get into experience and you can talk face to face with these kids and understand from their perspective exactly what they've gone through and see how it's affected them or how it impacts how they make decisions and that sort of thing, like that's where you really that's where the experience comes in and you can start to use that knowledge. But until then, it's like head knowledge. And so coming directly out of school and coming straight into here, part of me like, oh yeah, I'm qualified, yeah, I can get in here and start doing things. But then you start engaging and it's like, oh man, like this is different. Like you gotta like kind of tailor the knowledge that you have to the specific situation and try to work through it with them. So yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing, that like just the experiences, meeting with the kids and talking to them is huge, and doing the work that we're doing.
That's very good. So like when a new resident comes, like what is your role from beginning to end in that caseload?
Yeah, so we're still kind of working through that. As far as like intake, eventually there's a few assessments and stuff that we do, so eventually I'll be taking those over. And then throughout treatment here, treatment planning is the main thing that I do. So there are 5 phases that they go through, and then at each of the phases they get a new treatment plan with new goals. Each phase has a different focus for their goals. So on each one of the phases, I meet with the residents, talk about goals, see how things have been going, and then write up a new treatment plan for them with their input, the treatment team's input, and all of that. So throughout their time here, that's one of the main things I do. Just started doing progress reports, so every month you got to go through and kind of track their progress, how they've been doing through the treatment, and how they progress towards their goals. And then at discharge, this is like we're still working through this as well. There are again some assessments that you do, and like transition planning and that sort of thing. But still kind of working out the kinks and some of that.
So being involved in every residential caseload, do you go to every team meeting at houses then?
I do, yeah.
Okay, lots of free food and
yeah, it's wonderful. There seems to always be some sort of like pastry, cookies, coffee. There's always something there that entices you to go.
So I'm not going to disclose the house because it would be too obvious to know who it was.
Sure.
But anyway, I was in this house trying to do something, and it was right before a team meeting, and I picked up, I don't even know what it was, but it was like the perfect marriage of an Oreo cookie and a chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
I don't know how you even do that, but it was delicious. And I think they said it was even cheesecake, but my mouth and my stomach were happy for the next hour.
Oh, it was wonderful. And I learned that those cookies had been made like several days before.
Oh, man.
So they weren't fresh, but they were fantastic.
Yeah. Wow. I'm not a huge dessert guy, but that definitely hit the right buttons.
Absolutely. The perks of team meetings, for sure.
Yeah. Very good. So what is one thing about your job that gives you pause or just anxiety? maybe it's a certain time of the month or kind of whatever.
Yeah.
For me, no matter how it is, how much I try to plan, it's as simple as like when I have to turn in my expense reports, I'm always late. So I need to do a better job on that.
Yeah. I would say there's some sort of just like not knowing when I meet with a resident to talk about phase goals. Sometimes like certain residents are usually pretty willing to talk and pretty open. Others of them are not, and so just trying to gauge like how they're going to respond, whether they've been having like good days recently or bad days, like that can definitely affect depending on the phase they're going into, can also affect a little bit. So you never really know how they're going to respond coming in. So that can give a little bit of anxiety, but typically it goes pretty well. Just finished up with monthly progress reports. This is my first time doing it, and there were quite a few of them. I was taking all of the cases on campus, so that gave me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information to put in, but got through that, and now I'm just getting ready for next month. Trying to prep for that to make it go a little bit more smoothly.
Very good. So you've been here how long in this role?
It'll be coming up on 3 months, I think the middle of this month.
Okay. So do you have any other goals, like by the year's end or your calendar year, that I want to achieve this, or are you just kind of letting it come as it?
Yeah. So I definitely want to have, like in terms of like tasks and stuff, taking over assessments completely and kind of having that role kind of nailed down a little bit more by the end of the year. And again, that's going to come from experience and doing it with residents as they come in and as they leave. I think that's probably the main thing. And then just kind of trying to streamline some things like within my job that can make it a little bit more smooth, make things run a little bit more efficiently with paperwork and stuff like that. But
very good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or any questions? I have one more, but you
okay.
Go ahead.
I don't think I've got anything else to add.
So let's go with the baseball analogy. Who is on deck or in the circle or in the hole, if you will, in the Steidinger family to be the next employee?
Oh, that's a tough one.
It could be somebody in the farm leagues, like somebody young, and we can kind of nurture them along. That's fine.
I don't know. I've not really thought about that before.
Well, maybe we'll put it on Jesse and Carlos and say it's such good recruiters.
Yeah, I'd say that's it. They're probably got something in the works. Honestly, I don't know that, like my younger brothers, I'm not really able to gauge like where they're at in terms of like whether or not they're interested in social services or any of that. And some of the older siblings, I don't know if they're if they have that on their radar at this point. But yeah, hopefully we can keep bringing Steidingers out here.
Very good. Well, I've enjoyed this, and thanks for being flexible on such short notice. And if you have any thoughts or concerns on how Gateway works, contact us. But most importantly, we want your prayers. And as we mentioned earlier, we have house parent openings, and I think that's about it. I mean, for assistant and for house parent families, but we're pretty well stocked on most of our jobs, except there is a new position. It's the manager of maintenance and compliance, I think it is. And do you exactly know what that role is, or can you speak into that?
From what I know, it's like maintenance. They'd be taking care of like all the maintenance on campus, I believe, and then compliance. I think like we have certain standards and stuff that we have to meet, so they'll be kind of in charge of making sure that we're staying updated on those standards. Okay,
so very good. So if you you're organized and you're good with your hands and you like managing with people, this could be the right fit for you. So contact us about that, or if you know somebody, send us their information. So thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you next week.